Welcome to a free on-demand webinar presented by Michigan Alliance for Families. We partner with experts from across the state to offer live webinars to help answer the questions we encounter most frequently. Our webinars are recorded and archived for future viewing. Handouts for our webinars can be requested through our webpage, michiganallianceforfamilies.org/webinar. Remember to keep up with Michigan Alliance for Families on social media and be sure to check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. Follow-up questions to this webinar can be directed to us at info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Today's webinar is Early On Parental Consent with Stacy Rulson. Hi, Stacy.
Hello, and thank you. And thank you for joining us today for the webinar you selected and the series of webinars related to Early On. Early On is Michigan's early intervention program for helping families whose infants and toddlers have developmental delays or are at risk for delays due to certain health conditions. Early On is Michigan's early intervention program covered by Part C of the federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or often called IDEA. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with information related to your rights under IDEA. This is webinar 3 of 4, further explaining your rights. These include procedural safeguards, records and confidentiality, prior written notice, and the content for today under parental consent. There are a number of objectives in sharing information in this webinar for participants, including participants being informed about the meaning of parental consent, being informed about how to give parental consent, being informed about when to give parental consent, and being informed about declining parental consent. There are also additional resources that can be found regarding procedural safeguards and parental consent at the Michigan Alliance for Families website at the link provided on the screen. If you access this link, there are other links on the page to Early On Procedural Safeguards, Protecting Families' Rights, Early On Your Family Has Rights brochure, Family Matters Procedural Safeguard fact sheets, and many more resources. You'll find additional information on procedural safeguards and parental consent at this page also. So first, we're going to cover what parental consent really means. Informed consent means that you agree and give permission to Early On in writing that you are fully informed and understand what will happen. It also means that your native language is used, or the language you usually use, but it is not required for the form to be completed. The intent is for you to understand the benefits, responsibilities, and any consequences so you can make an informed choice about participating in Early On services. To give consent, the person must be a biological or adoptive parent of a child, an authorized guardian, someone acting in place of a biological or adoptive parent, an appointed surrogate, or someone appointed by the court to act on behalf of a child. Consent for Early On activities can be given by a parent, an adoptive parent, a guardian, or a person acting as the parent when the parent cannot be identified or located, or when the parent's rights have been terminated. For example, if the child is in foster care. When you give consent, there is a process you follow which includes signing a form. Your signature on the form means that you have been provided with all of the information needed and understand the activity, that you understand that giving your permission is voluntary, and you understand that you may change your mind and withdraw your permission at any time. It is important to know timing. There's timing in giving consent or giving your permission from you to certain activities or actions. Early On must have written consent before screening, evaluating, assessing eligibility or continued services or beginning services. Early intervention, a written individualized family service plan or IFSP providing supports and services you can accept or decline, use of public benefits such as Medicaid or insurance prior to billing, or release of personally identifiable information and giving consent for sharing that information. Some parents decline to give consent for a variety of reasons. If you do not consent to evaluations, assessments, or early intervention services, the provider participating in early intervention services, Part C, will make reasonable efforts to ensure that you are aware of the nature of the evaluation and assessment, and understand your child will not receive an evaluation, an assessment, or early intervention without your written consent. Service coordinator should answer all questions or clarify information about giving consent or what you are agreeing to when you meet with that individual. There are more resources on parent consent or parental consent on the Early On website at the link provided on the screen. There's more information in the Early On Michigan Family Guidebook, Procedural Safeguards Protecting Families, List of Established Conditions, Requests for State Complaint Investigation Form, Early Intervention, Early On Due Process Complaint Procedures, Prior Written Notice, Early On Parental Consent, Authorization to Release Early On Records, Early On Parental Consent for Developmental Screening, and more. These resources may be helpful in navigating procedural safeguards with your child.
Thank you, Stacy. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, and we're Michigan's federally funded Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. Follow-up questions to this webinar can be directed to us at info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org or contact us through our 800 number, 1-800-552-4821. Thank you.